Very good morning, everyone. So this is 12th of February, and we are here with the Hindu discussion. Okay, so if you see the headline, then there is a thing that the center is planning to issue guidelines for books by defense personnel. Okay, so lots of uproar has happened, you know, because of the this book. Okay, written by former army or chief. Okay, so that is what is led to this new development. Okay, now and here is the US drops references added to a statement on deal with India. So what is happening, let us see. So the US on Wednesday backtracked on changes it made to the India US joint statement, and the White House fact sheet on the India US framework for the interim agreement on trade, removing preferences to purchase agriculture products, digital services tax, and Indian commitments on investing $500 billion. The references, which were not in the original joint statement, had led to questions being raised in New Delhi. Oh my God. Opposition leaders asked the government to clarify its position after officials had categorically said that sensitive agriculture items were not included in the deal, and that India had intended but not given a bidding commitment to investing $500 billion in American products over a period of 5 years. India would eliminate or reduce tariffs on all US industrial goods and a wide range of US food and agriculture products, including dried distillers, grains, red sorghum, tree nuts, fresh and processed fruit, soybean oil, wine, and spirit and some products. The correct fact sheet read. So basically, misrepresentation, there were certain words that were included by US without having the consent of India. Okay, so that is what is all about. Now, India gets first musical path. Mumbai's coastal road plays Jai Ho for motorist. Okay, India gets first musical path. First musical path for where it is? It is in the Mumbai's coastal road place. Now, Tamil Brahmi inscription discovered in Egypt shed light on ancient trade links. Now, let us see the editorial. Okay. So SIR, we have SIR, then CPI base revision. Okay. Well, these are good. Then Constitution enters the centrum. Then taxpayer have a state gain from the section. So 16 Finance Commission. Okay, so this is must. We need to look at this. And now, not much thing. So first of all, let us read the editorial page. Okay. So here is this. Let us read this one. A judicial drift in the special intensive revision hearings. Okay. So, in first week of February 2026, in an unprecedented event, the Chief Minister of West Bengal, Mamata Banerjee, appeared before the Supreme Court of India in ongoing hearings around the conduct of the Special Intensive Revision (SIR) of the electoral rolls, which has been taking place in multiple states across India. The Chief Minister's arguments were focused on certain procedural infirmities that were causing hardship to the residents of her state. Her intervention led to the court passing a slew of directions on February 9, ostensibly seeking to mitigate some of these hardships. However, in course of the hearing, the court also made a statement that no impediment to the SIR would be allowed across any of the states. Now, court constitution challenge not decided. This statement is baffling because in making it, the court appears to have prejudged the most fundamental issue before it, an issue that goes to the heart of the court's own role as the primary organ of the constitutional adjudication. Challenges to the SIR were first filed before the court in July when it was announced for the state of Bihar. Among other things, these petitions mentioned the constitutionality of the SIR itself. Months have passed with SIRs announced in multiple states. The challenges have multiplied. The Bihar election has come and gone November 2025 with the Bihar SIR effectively having become a fait accompli. The court has held multiple hearings where it has in effect played the role of an administrator, passing directions on issues such as whether or not the Aadhaar card can be used as an identification document. Just a minute. Yes. However, the core constitution challenge has not been decided. And as the court's observations now show, the fate accompli seems to have been permanently enshrined, with any future judgment serving only to act as a retrospective validation of existing facts on the ground. It is worth remembering that in a constitutional democracy, the court's primary role is to ensure that other state organs comply with constitution and not to transform itself into a administrator. However, the court's conduct in the SIR case is not new. While the constitutionality of Aadhaar program was challenged in 2012, it was only in 2018 that a final judgment was passed by which time Aadhaar had effectively become a fait accompli, too big to be undone. In the intervening 6 years, the court had passed various orders about where and how Aadhaar could be used or demanded, but had not touched the constitutional challenge before it. The repetition of this pattern in the SIR case reveals a normalization of the court moving away from its role as a constitutional court and adopting the role of administrator. This is unfortunate. The repetition of this pattern in SIR case reveals a normalization of the court moving away from its role as a constitutional court and adopting the role of the administrator. This is unfortunate. This is unfortunate. There are significant issues. Indeed, the SIR process has raised certain significant constitution the SIR process has raised certain constitutional issues. Many of these issues turn upon the question of power. While the Representation of People Act, India's umbrella election law, authorizes the Election Commission of India (ECI) to conduct a special revision for any constituency or any part of constituency and for reasons to be recorded. There is a fundamental question about whether this very specific power is also a carte blanche authorization to conduct state and nationwide SIRs. The wording of the section seems to imply that its purpose is a targeted and focused exercise meant to correct for distortions that might creep in certain specific places. By contrast, the present SIRs dragnate large-scale revisions of the rules that in effect turn them into citizenship determining exercises. Added to this is the fact that electoral rolls already exist. Thus, the ongoing SIRs amount to an exercise where the entire populations of the states are called upon to freshly establish their citizenship and their right to vote without any pre-existing clause for suspicion. The constitutional question then turns upon whether the ACI can simply operate on this mass presumption of non-citizenship and force people to prove their rights from scratch. In 1995, in Lal Babu Hussain others versus electoral registration officer and others, the court held that it could not. There again, the Election Commission of India had set to effect large-scale removal of names from the voter rose, acting on the suspicion that in certain constituencies there were many non-voters on the rolls. The court struck down this exercise, and in the direction that it passed, made it clear that the notices for removal from the rolls would have to be directed at a uh, specific specific individuals, and also a disclosure of the reason for suspicion that the individual in question was not a citizen. As noted above, the present SIRs completely invert the basic invert that basic process. Instead of issuing notices to specific people that it reasonably suspects are non-voters, the election commission of India now requires everyone to come and prove that they are voters. It is crucial to note that multiple reports have come in from various states about arbitrary deletions and of individual having to run from pillar to post to prove that their citizenship does not exist in vacuum. They are the product of this fundamental inversion of the state-citizen relationship. The other troubling impact of the SIR exercise is that the wholesale revision of voter rolls has brought into play the notorious Form 7, which allows any person to object to the inclusion of any other person in the electoral roll. There have already been widespread reports about the misuse of Form 7 to have people stuck off the rules and in mass from multiple states, and an accentuation of disparities. Finally, and this was something highlighted by the West Bengal chief minister as well, in the in country with in vast material inequalities and disparities in access to the state, requirements operate systematically, and in particular impact the vulnerable and the marginalized people at the intersection of the axis of caste, poverty, and gender. Indian courts have long articulated an equality jurisprudence that is cognizant of material and socio-political discrimination process that accentuates rather than mitigates these disparities, violates basic constitutional principles. It should be obvious that these are not mere administrative glitches that can be corrected by administrative tweaks in the manner in which the court has been doing for the past 8 months. Rather, the specific problems of voter deletions and disenfranchisement that are being brought to the court on a regular basis are symptoms. They are downstream from the actual issue, which is the manner in which the ongoing SIRs invert the relationship between the state and the individual and leave the latter effectively at the mercy of the former. This is a question that goes to the heart of the constitutional order. It cannot be reminded through a mere administrative fix. Rather, it must be addressed from the perspective of a constitutional framework that genuinely affirms the dignity and participatory rights of every individual, refusing to reduce persons to mere cogs in the machine of state and administrative efficiency. Okay, so this whole article is surrounding the SIR controversy. Okay, so Gautam Bhatia, sir, has actually tried to highlight the issues regarding the special intensive revision. Okay, so last week, what happened that the sitting chief minister of West Bengal, Mamata Banerjee, appeared in the Supreme Court of India. Okay, so that is what is talking about the issues. Okay, now let us see this one. So what is happening that there is a talk on the CPI base revision exercise. Okay, so that is what it talks about. So the CPI base revision exercise measures a slice of life. So this is written by Saurabh Gar, who is the Secretary Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, Government of India. So let us see. Inflation, one of the most closely watched macroeconomic indicators, is something that most people feel in daily life in their routine household expenses. The Consumer Price Index (CPI) captured this reality by tracking the prices of goods and services that households regularly consume, turning everyday expenses into an official measure of inflation. Okay, so what CPI does? So CPI captures the reality of the inflation by tracking the prices of goods and services that households regularly consume. Like we, household means individual, retailer consumer. Okay, retail consumers like you and me. Okay, so we are the households. Okay, household regularly consume, so we as a household consume all these services and goods on daily basis, and CPI is trying to try to capture that inflation in the goods and services that we regularly consume. Okay, turning everyday experiences into an official measure of inflation for the common man, the CPI is like quick mirror of daily life, capturing entirely the changing cost of basic needs such as food on the plate, rent for the roof over the head, and fuel for the journey to work. More than a simple number. Now, more than a simple number. Though it appears as a simple number, it speaks for households, guiding income and social security adjustment so that life's essentials remain within reach. CPI based inflation is also the primary indicator for the Reserve Bank of India to help guide it in decisions such as interest rates and inflation control. Therefore, when the CPI reflects reality, policies respond better to what people are truly experiencing. Inflation is not just about prices going up. It is about how these prices changes affect household budgets. That is why making sure that the index reflects current consumption patterns is just as important as tracking the prices themselves. This is the context in which India's ongoing CPI based updation from year 2012 to 2024 must be seen. Okay, so what is going to happen? CPI base updation is going to be changed from 2012 to 2024. Okay, so since the last base revision, the economy has changed significantly. Urbanization has grown, services have expanded, digital platforms have changed buying habits, and household spending has diversified. The CPI 2024 series has therefore been updated using the latest household consumption expenditure survey 2023-24. As people's preferences and expenses change over time, the importance weightage given to different goods and services in the CPI has also been adjusted. Okay, so items on which households now spend more have been given greater weight, with less weight for those that account for a smaller share of spending. This ensures that the CPI measures price changes that really affect household budgets. The consumption basket has also been updated to reflect emerging trends, such as growing spending on services driven by rising income and changing lifestyle. Updating the way updating the way that the CPI is calculated is just as important as updating what it measures. The revised CPI is more closely aligned with international standard while retaining features specific to India. This makes it easier to compare India's inflation with other countries. From the perspective of households, this matters because it helps policymakers understand how price changes in India fit into the global picture without losing sight of what affects daily life. Data collection for CPI has been upgraded to keep pace with how people shop and spend. While traditional market surveys still track prices, particularly of food and other essentials, the 2024 framework has introduced what has introduced that captures online prices for items introduced that captures online prices for items such as telecom services, airfares, and certain other services. A wider database. The adoption. Just a minute. The adoption of computer assisted price collection in the new series has reduced manual errors and allowed real time checks, improving the quality and timelines of price data. Quality and timelines of CPI matter because these shape decisions that touch everyday life, such as how high lows are, how much savings are, how rising prices influence household budgets. In the new base year, the CPI draws more on official data from government sources, rail fares, postal charges, fuel prices, and items sold through the public distribution system. This means that these numbers are captured with great precision by mitigating the chances of errors and biases that can occur in market surveys. The integration of survey data, administrative records, and digital price sources represents a marked improvement over earlier practices and provides a more reliable picture of how prices are changing. The massive institutional effort behind a base revision exercise of this scale is also worth noting. It involves coordination across field offices, statistical divisions, and national and international expert bodies. The process involves extensive scrutiny of methodology, testing of alternatives, and consultation with economists and domain specialists. The Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation MOSPI, the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation MOSPI has engaged with expert groups, international organizations, and stakeholders to ensure that the changes are transparent, easy to understand, and methodologically sound. Even with updates to the basket, weights, and data sources, the CPI keeps its core purpose, capturing how prices change from a household's point of view. This continuity matters because it let us compare prices over time. In other words, the index is being improved without losing the connection to everyday life so that it remains a reliable guide for policymakers. In context, the CPI reminds us that behind every static lies the lived experience of millions, and that numbers ultimately are about people. It quickly addresses how prices shape daily life and inform policy decisions. Through the ongoing base revision exercise, the MOSPI has ensured that the CPI continues to be accurate, up to date, and consistent over time, up to date and consistent over time, so that it remains not just a number but a true mirror capturing the realities faced across the country. So this is all about the base CPI base revision. Okay, so base year, which was earlier 2012, is going to be changed to 2024. Here you can see. Okay, and this time this is going to be to include many things also. Okay, like they are going to include the online payment. Okay, yes, capture online prices for items such as telecom services, airfares, and certain other services. Okay, so this is important. So Saurabh Garg sir, who is the Secretary of the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, Government of India, has written this. Okay. Now, opinion the constitutional so DMK. So this is not important for us. Taxpayer base more than doubled in last decade. Okay, so this is important. So taxpayer base has been doubled in last. How this happened? So India's direct tax system has undergone a significant expansion over the last decade, marked by a sharp rise in the number of taxpayers as well as sustained improvements in administrative efficiency. Time series data released by Income Tax Department indicate that this expansion has been broad-based and persistent, reflecting deeper formal participation rather than short-lived compliance surge. Between assessment year 2013 to 14 and assessment year 2024-25, the total number of taxpayers defined as persons who either filed a return of income or in whose case tax was deducted at source increased from 5.26 crore to 12.13 crore. This increase, which more than doubles the taxpayer base, represents a compound annual growth rate CAGR of approximately 7.89% over 11 years, underscoring the sustained nature of expansion. It marks one of the most important structural shifts in India's direct tax landscape since the wider adoption of the permanent account number PAN. Disaggregated disaggregated view of the data shows that the individual taxpayers remain the primary drivers of this expansion. As illustrated in Chart 1, the number of individual taxpayers rose from 4.96 crore in assessment year 2013 to 14 to 11.61 crore in assessment year 2024-25, translating into a CAGR of about 8% over the period. Growth was largely steady in the years preceding the COVID-19 pandemic, with year-on-year increases mostly in the high single digits. The contraction visible in assessment year 2020-21, when individual taxpayers declined by nearly 9%, coincides with the disruption caused by the pandemic. This was followed by strong recovery, with growth accelerating to double digits in the most recent assessment years, indicating renewed uh, momentum in the expansion of the individual tax base. While individuals dominate the tax system in a scale, the expansion has not been confined to households alone. So, so we'll leave this. Okay, why? Because much things are not important. So what we understood that the expansion of tax base has happened. Okay, so that is important. From 5.26 crore people were paying tax in 2013-24. Now that number has jumped to 12.13 crore in 2024-25. Now here is the thing. Harvested gain from the 16 Finance Commission. So what has happened, that the 16 Finance Commission report has been tabled in the Parliament. Okay, what have been the recommendations of the 16 Finance Commission? What taxes are shared between the center and the states? Why did the last commission revise vertical devolution to 41%? What had industrialized states such as Maharashtra, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Telangana demanded? Now let us see. So here is the key. So the 16 Finance Commission under the chairmanship of Dr. Arvind Panagaria has submitted its report for the period of 2026 to 31. Okay, so 5 years, for 5 years period. Okay, the central government has accepted its recommendation with respect to devolution of funds from center to states. What were the past recommendations? The Constitution in Article 270 provides for the scheme of distribution of net tax proceeds collected by central government between the center and the states. The taxes that are shared between the center and the states include corporation tax, personal income tax, central goods and services tax (GST), center share of integrated goods and services tax, etc. Okay, so tax that are shared, here is the list. This division is based on the this division is based on the recommendation of the finance committee that is constituted every 5 years as per the terms of Article 280. This divisible pool, however, does not include cess. Divisible pool does not include cess and surcharge that are levied by the center. For the year 2025-26, it is estimated that the divisible pool constitutes only around 81% of the gross tax revenue of the center after excluding cess and surcharge. Till the 13th Finance Commission 2010 to 15, the devolution involves specific transfers. Till the 13th Finance Commission, the devolution involves specific transfers for centrally sponsored scheme with extensive conditionalities. The share of states in central taxes vertical devolution was fixed. The share of states vertical devolution was fixed 32%. However, since 14 Finance Commission, the specific transfer for CSS centrally sponsored scheme were discontinued. Discontinued, and the vertical devolution was increased to 42%. It was revised down to 41% in the 15th Finance Commission due to the reorganization of Jammu and Kashmir into union territories. The criteria for distribution amongst the states horizontal devolution since 13 Finance Commission is provided in Table 1. As can be observed, higher weightage has been given for equity, income gap, and needs population and area when compared to efficiency, forest demographic performance, and tax effort. So this is the share for the state. So till this 13 Finance Commission 2010 to 2015, the devolution involved a specific transfers for centrally sponsored schemes with extensive conditionalities. Criteria for horizontal devolution amongst the states. Okay, so this is the horizontal devolution criteria. See 2000. So 2013, so income distance was given the weightage of 47.5%. In 14, it was 50%. In 15, it was brought down to 45%. Then 16, 42.5%. Then population of 1971, 25%, 17.5%. In 15, it was discontinued because they have adopted 2011 population. Okay, so 15, then 17.5, then area it was 10, then 15, then 15, then again 10. Then forest it was not there in 13, it was introduced 14, in 14, 7.5, then 10, then again 10. Then fiscal discipline it was introduced in 13, 17.5, then it was discontinued till then. Then demographic performance so introduced in 15, 12.5, then it is 10 now. Then tax effort it was introduced in 15 only, 2.5, and this time it has gone. Now state contribution to GDP, this has been introduced, it is 10. Okay, now what were states demand? So what were the states demand? Firstly, as regards vertical devolution, 18 states had demanded that the state share be increased from the current 41% to 50%. A few other states had demanded an increase of 45% to 48%. Many states had demanded the inclusion of cess and surcharge in the individual as well as fixing a cap on the cess and surcharge that could be levied by the center. Secondly, as regards horizontal devolution, many states had pushed for the continued dominance of equity parameters in the criteria. Equally, many states had recommended reducing the weight assigned to income distance as a criteria. Industrialized states such as Maharashtra, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Karnataka had recommended the inclusion of states' contribution to GDP among the horizontal devolution criteria. What did the 16th Finance Commission recommend with respect to the demands regarding the vertical revolution? The Finance Commission opined that under the present constitutional scheme, it is neither permissible nor desirable to fix a cap on cess and surcharge for their inclusion in the divisible pool. These instruments may also be needed to raise resources for the union to meet any exigencies. Similarly, the Finance Commission recommended retaining the state share in vertical devolution at its current level of 41%, considering three main reasons: the state share in the total tax revenues of the country, that much of the spending of the union in centrally sponsor scheme is anyway ultimately routed to the states, and that the union government needs increased funds for defense and infrastructure. In its approach for horizontal devolution, the Finance Commission was guided by two principles. First, changes to each state share in the proportion of divisible food should be gradual. Second, due recognition should be given to efficiency and especially the state contributions to growth. Accordingly, a new criteria of states contribution to GDP has been added. Okay, the way to this new criteria as well as other criteria has been assigned in such a way that it spells direction change without causing a drastic shift in state shares. Considering all the above factors, the share of southern and the western states has marginally increased while the share of big north and central states has marginally decreased. Hence, one may conclude that it is status quo as far as vertical and horizontal devolution is concerned, with a directional change towards providing the recognition for efficiency. Additionally, the following observations of the Finance Commission should be borne in mind. The center should progressively reduce raising revenues through sales and surcharges. The states should make their subsidies efficient and targeted, actively pursue reforms in power sector, and rein in the levels of their fiscal deficit and debt. The center and the states should undertake various public sector enterprise reforms. Rangarajan, so that's all. Rangarajan R is a former IAS officer and author of courseware on Polity Simplified. Friends at Officers IAS Academy. Okay. So what is the gist? So Constitution in Article 270 provides for the scheme of distribution net tax proceeds collected by central government between the center and the states. With respect to the demands regarding vertical devolution, finance committee opined that the under present constitution it is neither permissible nor desirable to fix cap on sales and surcharge or for their inclusion in indivisible pool. In its approach for horizontal devolution, the Finance Commission was guided by two principles. First, changes to each state share in the proportion of divisible pool should be gradual. Second, due recognition should be given to efficiency and especially the state's contribution to growth. So we have ended here. I think most of the part we have already covered. Let us see economy page. If there is anything uh, more important for our examination. Speaker directs Lok Sabha Secretariat to correct notice seeking his removal. Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla on Wednesday asked the Lok Sabha Secretary to correct shortcomings in the opposition's notice seeking his removal from constitutional office and proceed with corrected notice. The revised notice will be listed after the commencement of the second phase of budget session. The second phase will be held between 9 March and April 2nd. Shortcomings were found in notice submitted by opposition MPs on Tuesday to remove Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla. A source in Lok Sabha Secretariat said the notice referred four times to events of February 2025, on the basis of which it would have been rejected under the rules. They added, Mr. Birla directed the Secretary to have the defective notice corrected and then proceed with it. It will be taken up in the second part of the budget session. The first part of the session, which got underway on January 28, will go into recess on February 13. While the opposition's move is aimed at making a political point on the way the House has functioned, there is considerable interest in the purpose. Article 94 of the Constitution deal with the provisions regarding the removal of the Speaker. On Article 19C, the opposition notice is under Article 19C, which states that the Speaker may be removed from his office by a resolution of the House of the People by a majority of the then members of the House. This is interpreted as the effective majority of the House, that is more than half of the Senate of the House minus the vacancies. Okay. The Constitution does not use the word effective majority, but it's meant to convey the effective Senate of the House. Former Lok Sabha Secretary General PDT Acharya told the Hindu. A minimum of 14 days notice has to be given before a resolution seeking the removal of a speaker can be taken up by the House under Article 96. The speaker can respond to the notice for removal. Now let us see Vande Mataram to be played before national anthem government. Okay, good decision. Let us see. Okay, so SMEs unfamiliar with capital market lack intermediaries. India must lead global firms reply to climate change. A world So, world you have Bangladesh election. Then NATO launches Arctic Sentry mission after Greenland crisis. So NATO on Wednesday said it had launched a new mission to bolster security in Arctic, moved to accuse US President Donald Trump after he backed off claims on Greenland. NATO said that the multi-domain activity would initially pull together work already being carried out by alliance members in the region. Sri Lanka sentenced 12 to death for lawmakers' move killing in 2022. The Ukraine told her father killed in Russian drone attack. So all these things not important. I think we have ended with the Hindu discussions in just 40 minutes. Everything we have done. Budget gives science missions big figures, but core funding gaps persist. Okay, so this is the Institute of Science campus in Bangalore. The Let us see this science page as well. Okay. Budget gives science missions big figures, but core funding gaps persist. Okay, just 10 minutes more. So the Union Budget 2026-27 presented science as an instrument of growth with large numbers of biopharma, semiconductors, carbon capture, and research-linked industrial finance on paper. However, expert reactions to this budget point to a more fragile reality, as they say attempts to move from adopting technology to creating them by building mission-linked platforms in biopharma, semiconductors, critical materials, and climate. It seems that the limiting factors isn't the ambition of a scheme, but what the government actually delivers, including reliable and timely funds, autonomy for research institutions, and transparency and performance of large finance vehicles for innovation. In 2023-24, allocation for Department of Biotechnology was revised down from 2,683.86 crore to 1,607.32 crore, and actual spending fell further to 1,467.34 crore. Likewise, for the Department of Science and Technology from 7. So all this. So biopharma. Let us see here. Okay, onwards. Now the recent budget, I think they would have given. No, they have not given. So biopharma Shakti against the backdrop, LS Sasidhara, director of the National Center for Biological Sciences, Bangalore, framed the biopharma outlay as welcome but incomplete. He pointed to significant funding shortfalls following major changes introduced in 2024-25 to fund flow system and to delays in the transition from the Science and Engineering Research Board to the Anu Sandhan National Research Foundation. According to him, some of the underspending in recent years may have been less about lack of intent and more about administrative disruption. The budget, he said, has at least avoided punishing science department for that disruption by cutting overall allocations. The biggest allocation this year was for a new program called Biopharma Shakti of 10,000 crore over 5 years. Department of Biotechnology Secretary Rajesh Gokhale said it will address non-communicable diseases and scale indigenous development and manufacturing of biologists and biosimilars. He linked it explicitly to the earlier Deputy NASA Biopharma mission. Dr. Gokhale also said the next set of ambitions would include cell and gene therapy missions, biomanufacturing hubs, and foundries and molecular hubs that integrate AI with biology. Big ticket infra. The technical case for such a push is obvious. India has real competencies in vaccine, diagnostics, and bioengineering. The issue is whether the outlay will broaden the base or only thicken the top layer of applied programs. Dr. Sasidhara expressed caution related to this. If Biopharma Shakti is administered primarily through the Department of Pharmaceuticals as planned, it could privilege a downstream manufacturing goals while neglecting the upstream life science ecosystem that produces the tools and ideas. So he asked that the Department of Pharmaceuticals actively engage the broader life sciences community in design and implementation. He also said long-standing prevention programs and the routine issuance of small and medium-sized grants could deliver high social returns, but only if agencies and finance ministers' expenditure division fix the problem of a smooth and timely fund law. A similar tension appears in the budget imbalance of the big tiers. So not these are not important. Now, IIT Madras Institute professors. I don't think these are much important. So we'll stop here only. Okay. So we have already discussed all those important things. Okay.